back to the Courier Pure Cafe. I got some pictures here of the old Courier Cafe, and one of them is before the actual cafe was put on top.
Yeah.
But
well, this right here, that's the picture of that sandy beach. That was the best place in the whole country to go swimming because it was always sheltered there and warm, and it was just an ideal spot. You know?
That's right where Ringo's is.
Still is an ideal spot for some of us.
And the lodge. That's where the lodge and Ringo's is, right there.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was.
And then another view of it.
Yeah, that they stored boats underneath there. You know? Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the pier that you never been out on. Never went out on.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was there in the early '50s. It kind of sputtered and sputtered along. It was a beautiful place.
I saw the pictures.
The dance floor, and there was all mirrors all along one side.
Yeah, here's a picture of the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Well, this was the dance floor, and there was all mirrors there, and they had a lot of velvet. They had a lot of velvet.
Velvet? Mm. What color was the velvet?
Now, and you and Muriel used to go dancing there?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, probably, a long time ago.
Now,
We weren't very old there.
Of course, you weren't allowed to go there. That was the bar.
You know, in them days, you didn't. There wasn't liquor stores. There was liquor. I mean, there was liquor stores, but you couldn't go into a bar and order. You had to take your bottle, and they put your name on it and put it back there, and that's the way they served you out of your own bottle. That's the way it used to be until they changed the law.
Now, did you bring your own boo? I mean,
You had to take your own.
so
bottle.
you got the moonshine from the.
No, I
and
never
you-
did.
It was legal with that in the later 30s.
So you're saying you'd bring your own empty bottle?
No. You took your own full bottle.
So you
Full
took your
They
drink
would put
to
your
the.
name on it. Set
that
it up
was
on
your
the
drink.
Bar,
I like that.
And if you wanted to drink, you had to pay for your own booze.
Well, but you had to pay for your own boo.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just about. I mean,
Oh,
You
really?
had to pay for somebody to serve it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
that's why. But that was really something, that horseshoe bar and all the windows. We looked out on the lake. You know. It was,
The wood looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it was shiny, very shiny finish on it.
Oh yeah, it was a beautiful place. No doubt about that. Yeah.
And here's a band was there.
Well,
Allegedly,
I'll tell you
Roy
what.
Rogers came with his band.
Sons of the Pioneers.
Signs
was
of the
there.
Pioneers. I don't know if that's them or not.
It could be. Very possible.
Mm-hmm.
Very possible. Yeah, they got cowboy hats on.
Yeah.
Probably was. Yeah. Yeah, Courier brought in a lot of entertainment. There's no doubt about that. And they had a big loudspeaker outside. We could hear it up here on,
Really?
you could hear it all over Lakeside, the music, but yeah.
Now, the place burned down eventually.
Yeah, must have been sometime in the mid-50s, I presume, or maybe before. I know, well, it was sometime in the because I was out there and I was 21, so, and I remember I was out there when, because my aunt and uncle was here from California, and Muriel was in the hospital. She was going to have Janet. That was 69 years ago. Almost, no more than that. But anyway, you're old and you got 2 kids on Social Security. We got 2 kids on Social Security. We only had 2 daughters.
Jack, how old are you?
71.
You fibber.
Muriel will be 70.
You fibber.
Muriel will be 70 in December.
Jack, you said 70.
71, no.
How real old are you? You're not 70 anymore.
I'm 71.
Isn't
I
this?
mean 91. 91.
Yes, sir.
That's only a couple of
I'm
decades.
just trying to
That's
get
only
it.
a couple of
You're on
decades.
TV, Bowron, lying to everybody. You may look like you're 71,
Well, I've been
but
married 71 years. That's what
I
wow.
was going to say.
Wow.
Okay. The Sportsman Beach. You were mentioning the beach there by the.
Yeah, that's
Apparently,
where-
this is on the other side of the cafe. There was a beach there too.
Yeah,
That's
they did this.
That's it.
They did this after the war. I know that for a few years.
Was that fill they put in there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, they dug it out from the creek. They dug it both places out. Because they used to have, when Courier first had it, when he first opened up, there was a skeet range down there. They shot skeet and trap. Yeah.
You mean off before the beach?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I would be back up here.
Okay.
But anyway, right behind where the
Village was.
yeah, right behind the village, down in that. It was he cleared it off in there. It was mostly willows out and willows and stuff like that. But that's yeah, they had a skeet range there. I know us kids could go out there and pick up some of them ones that got not broke on them. What they give probably give us a stack of them. They give us a nickel. I don't know what it was. I don't remember. But if you could find them wasn't broke, they wanted them. And the guys that missed. Yeah, that was. Yeah, this is all after World War II. Well, you can see that that's a after World War II car parked there. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it was a happening place. Look at all the traffic.
Oh yeah, that was you know what that's about? Fishing in the 10 mile.
Fishing. Yep.
Fishing in 10 Mile Lake. That's what that's all about.
Salmon Run.
Salmon Run in 10 Mile Lake. You could almost walk on the boats out in 10 Mile Lake.
Good times.
Well, when this is going back again, during the war probably, World War II, there was Timmy McCauley that lived over here, and Tommy Teal, he lived in Lakeside. Well, we'd go down there, and in this time of year with the salmon coming in, and Muriel would go down there too, the kids, all the kids. That was our entertainment, chasing salmon.
Still
But
is.
you could go down there, and there would be so many salmon come in out of the ocean, and when the ocean would recede, there'd be salmon flopping around on it. There wasn't room for them in the creek. They'd be flopping around the salmon.
Just walk down there, pick one up.
Mike is getting
dinner.
jealous. He's drooling.
There was salmon everywhere. And they didn't that day. They didn't have. A lot of dogs died with salmon poison. They got salmon poison. Now they got a pill for it, and they don't have that problem. But there was salmon everywhere. Now this little creek out here, salmon used to come up here and go up in the head and spawn. The last time I seen a salmon there was in the '60s. There was I happened to be up there, and they had, and there was a big old coho in there, female, and I never seen another. I was up there a week or so later, I see where a coon got her and dragged her up on the bank. But they used to, and actually most of the time when they come out of there, they were small. There was I was on a committee one time for about 10 Mile Lakes. And I remember-
Before the poisoning.
Oh,
Was that a
no,
before?
that was after the poisoning.
Okay.
They poisoned all these, and then they come in and got fish and saved them, and then they
Yep.
brought them back in. And what they did, and that was in the '60s. And anyways, she was one that come back from over the years, you know.
One of those releases.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a little history on myself. In 1946, right after the war, like I said before, there was lots of work around. There was mills, everything, logging going on, and something. You walked in, because I was as big as I was 6 foot. Well, yeah, I was 6 foot tall when I was 16, and didn't weigh as much. I'd stand sideways. I couldn't make a shadow, but I milk cows in the morning, milk cows at night, work 8 hours in the logging industry. Kids don't do that nowadays. I was 16 years old. My first paycheck for 2 weeks, $54. You get a hamburger, a deluxe hamburger for 15 cents.
It's pretty good money.
Yeah. And then they begged me not, don't go back to school, don't go back to school, stay and work, stay and work, stay and work. But I always went back to high school. And the next summer, well, I got the first in 1946, the Joker Center was getting $1.25 an hour, and I got $1.05. I was the punk. They called me whistle.
Punk.
You had a wire that run out, and you could hear the guys that yell and send a signal to the yarders. I did that for 3 summers, $1.05 the next time I thought I would really make big money, I was getting $1.35 an hour. But it went a long ways. I mean, you could, there was another kid and I run around together. His name was Mike L. He didn't go back to school, he stayed and worked. But he's dead now. But anyway, yeah, but he'd been dead for a long time. But you take $5 and you go to the movie and just do all kinds of stuff, you know, for $5. You know, and, I did that for 3 years. And then I did it after I got out of high school too, and then the rains come like now, and that shut it all down. And there was a mill up the head of Shutter's Landing, M&M Lumber Company. They cut about 30,000 a day, pretty big for a Jippo mill. And I worked there I went to work there in 49. In 55, it was just about ready to run out of timber. And my dad was a longshoreman. He'd started in the 30s. And so I went in and started longshoreman. And it was the best move I ever made in my life.
Getting back to Lakeside, I've seen several pictures of a pavilion. Do you know where those were? And people, you know, little bands on them and various things. I couldn't find out where that thing was.
It's news to me. Yeah. They had seats there, I'll say that.
Yeah, can't tell from the picture, and I haven't seen anything else mentioning it.
No, probably before my time, I suppose.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't have a date on it, so.
No, it sure don't.
And the other question I had, did you ever go out of the 10 Mile Queen?
Well, that belonged to Muriel's stepdad and his mother.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
And that's my oldest daughter, that's the youngest daughter, and Muriel is, that's me standing right there.
I don't know if Jack has anything to say about it or if it's even true. I've always heard, since we're kind of taking a break, and we're going to start off with the 10 Mile Queen.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about like a brothel being on the lake? I'm just curious because I've heard stories. I know
Whorehouse.
A what?
A whorehouse. Wasn't there one at Big Creek? Jack, no one.
Not that I know about.
I've always heard, well, from the stories that I've heard is that there was one on Shutters. Not Shutters, Devore, and I guess it was on the boat exit south side of Devore, and then I guess there was a doctor or something that lived on the other side, and so there was a lot of boat traffic going back and forth with penicillin, I guess. Or
Jack was a good boy. He wouldn't know.
well, I'm saying from a personal
Well,
experience.
actually, there was a guy I talked to when I was thinking about building my place, and he was on Devore Arm, and he built a log home. There's a little log home there. And he said when he bought the place, there were several little cabins there, and he's wondering what is it? And I says, yeah, well, apparently that was the Lakeside Horror
See,
House.
that's the story.
And,
that's what I'm trying to get any kind of confirmation that it actually
that's
happened.
what he told me
Maybe
is that there was a
Jacobson's.
bunch of little cabins there, and it was the Lakeside House of Ill Repute.
That's right.
Well, I sure don't. I've never heard anything. My mother or dad never said anything about it.
Okay.
Didn't
So I
want
think
you
it's
to-
just a rumor.
Were you ever told to stay away from Devore Arm?
I don't even know what Arm Doe.
Yeah, well, it was the Jacobsons. Jacobsons, that was their homestead.
I think that's just a.
Could be
I
remember.
don't think it's.
10 Mile Queen, if you indicated you've been on the 10 Mile Queen, or at least your family has.
Well, it was Muriel's stepdad built it and her mother. And
Oh, they built it.
And her mother had it was built.
Oh.
It was on logs. It was on float logs, yeah.
Oh, it was on float logs.
Yes, it
Really?
was. And
Did it actually take excursions around the lake? with it?
yeah, they used to have I don't know, it was little. It was up there anyway. They'd have parties on it, like on Saturday night or something. A bunch of people, and they would go up and anchor up, they had some piling up there. Up past Willow, I don't know what they call it anymore. Willow Point is there a place they still
Willow
call
Point?
Willow Point?
Mhm.
Yes.
Up there past there a little ways, and they had some piling there, and they'd go up there and it had a jukebox in it and food and.
What time? When was this? What years?
He probably in the early 60s, I think, probably maybe late 50s he built it.
Okay.
Because it's in that picture, that fire.
Yeah, the picture of the fire was there. It
Yeah.
was moored apparently moored right off of that,
It
where the
right-
fire
right-
was.
Right in the creek here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that, I know that's me standing there. That's Bud Bly. And I think that was Eva, that was a guy by the name of Bud Bly. That was my youngest daughter, Glenda. This was Judy Pierce, and that was Shannon. And I think that was the Bly girls, I think. My wife's in that picture someplace, but I can't see it.
Mm.
I'm probably sitting down in that chair, so, but I know that's me standing there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were, yeah, it was quite a little thing.
Go ahead and point yourself out so I can remember. I'll get the picture closer. So
I think you pointed at this gentleman right
Right there,
there.
that's me.
okay, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
With that, yeah.
Cool.
But, yeah. And then, when they wasn't doing that, it was tied up there down there, and they had a restaurant on there, and people would come down there and eat on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they had a restroom on it and everything, and then actually between, well, they used to pump it into they had a septic tank up on the bank up there, and they used to pump it into that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was pretty neat. It was, and a guy. I don't know if he's still alive or not. He used to be an insurance man in Coos Bay. Andy Nasberg was his name.
Mm.
Did you know Andy Nasberg?
Met him a long time ago.
Oh, I don't even. He
I
might
don't know if
be dead
he-
now. I don't know. But he bought it originally, and then and took it up there, and they used it for a summer home on the lake. It was behind the island. It was
Yeah,
anchored-
there's still
Still there.
Still there.
Well, that's
Mhm.
it.
Wow.
It was anchored behind that.
Yeah. Don't know if the logs are still under it. I haven't really looked.
Yeah, I'd have to ask the current owners
Yeah.
what's underneath.
Mhm.
And that's- yeah.
Now, a question I had is there is apparently a road between Lakeside and down along the creek or near the creek, going down to the beach, so that they could go to the the beach to go north and south. Where did that run? There doesn't. I don't know that there's really a road there anymore.
No, because people, yeah. Then,
Is it north or
Yeah.
south of the creek or?
well, they used to go up over the sand dunes, but them sand dunes has come this way, several, maybe 100 yards anyway. I haven't been down there for a long time, but the sand dunes have all moved this way. You used to be able to, where the timber was, you went around it. There was, yeah. There was some, matter of fact, there was some people that lived down on the creek, and he used to go into where Weyerhaeuser was at, and Mill B was there. He worked at Mill B. I know that his name was. I don't remember what his name was, but the Martins lived down on the creek where my grandparents and my mother grew up down on the creek, and well, they was only there for 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly how long they was on the creek. My mother. And grandparents. Of course, my grandfather died in 1921. John Vanberger. He died real young, but yeah. When World War II was going on, everything from 10 Mile Creek to Winchester Bay was a gunnery range. They had at North Bend Airport, that was a Navy base where they was training flyers.
Mm-hmm.
They had a squadron of fighters. They had the bombers, dive bombers there. And matter of fact, down just above the lagoon, they had built a bridge across to 10 Mile Creek. Then out in the sand dunes, that was quite a, they had a big, oh my goodness, probably after the war, people went in and took the lumber out of it. They had a big circle out in the sand dunes out there for a dive bombing range.
Oh, really?
And it was probably
Okay,
it was
target
like
practice.
it was up on stilts or whatnot, off the ground quite a ways, and it was probably maybe 10, 12 feet wide. I mean, just like a big sidewalk around in a circle. Then there was 3 houses. There was little shacks where the observers sat off to the side.
I'd want to be far away from there.
Yeah.
When they're doing practice, dive bombing.
Then right above 10 Mile Creek, until the creek moved up there and finally washed it out, they had logs pyramided up. They'd taken the Coast Guard or Navy or somebody, and they would skip bomb in there on that, practice on that. They had a big target on the side of it. It was big. It was, I don't know, probably 40-foot square or maybe more. I don't know what the logs was. It was that big pyramid, and they had this target on there. Then they had up the beach a little ways. There was they had targets there for rockets too. What they looked like was like you seen them snow fences along the highway where it snows.
Yeah.
That's what they looked like. They had them out there in the sand dune. And right after the war, you would go out there and pick up empty shells, 50 caliber shells, casings, and the slugs laying in the sand. It was all over. It's probably been 30 years ago now, the last time I was out there. I used to go where the bridge goes over 10 Mile Creek now as you go to town. Anyway, I used to go up with that sand hill and go straight out to the ocean. It was good duck hunting from then down clear to the lagoon. Then I'd come back along the creek and the last time I was out there, probably 40 years ago now or something, because they used bombs probably as long as this table, but they was filled with water, and there was just tin, and it was filled with water. And when I was out there, there'd be these piles of rust in the sand, and I knew what they was, but probably nobody else did. You know?
Yeah,
But,
I wanted to know.
Then we shouldn't have, but sometimes they had, I guess they call them smoke bombs, I don't know. You can find them laying out there too. When I was 13, 14 years old, I'd be out here in the field and I can just close my eyes, still see the fighter planes that come up here and peel off and you dive, I could see the smoke coming out of when you're 13, 14, that's pretty impressive for a kid.
Oh, heck, that's impressive to anybody.
Yeah, it was really. So you couldn't go out there. You didn't go out there because you never know when they were going to be shooting.
That's big duck hunting.
Yeah, 50 cal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah. This here is the only house the wife and I've had, other than what we had in Yuma. We lived, the first couple of years my dad said when we got married, he said, "Well, you stay here and help your mother milk the cows." And then they give us a half acre here at that time. And because I was working for Munson's up at the mill, M&M Laundry Company. Well, actually, it was Munson's in Maine. You know Bob Maine, the
Commissioner?
commissioner?
Yeah.
Well, his dad. And one of the Munsons, Bill Munson and him, had been in Alaska they worked on the Alaska Highway up there all during the war. And they made some pretty big money, and then they come down and started a mill. And it was a pretty good sized mill for a Jippo mill. There was a lot of little mills around it, only around this whole area that would have 5 or 6 guys working in it, or whatever. They were small. They cut a lot of ties. But actually, in Lakeside, right after the war, there was 3 loading docks for loading on the train. They cut a lot of ties for railroads for Europe, I suppose. That's where they went. Whatever the size was. And there was a loading dock on the north side or on the south side as you cross the railroad tracks. There was a loading dock there, and then on this side there was another loading dock, and then then up the. I know where I'm at, but I don't know where. I can't tell you where. All the places are the mill. Tom Rue had a planing mill right alongside of the railroad track there too, because he had a mill down where Elkside is, or where the mill used to be, or where the park is now. He had the original sawmill in there, and it was a pretty good sized mill, but he also had there was a plank road run across it. What that street is, I don't know, it was all plank road that went across there. And they hauled lumber back and forth to the planer mill. Jimmy Bradley, who's still alive, lives over here, he drove lift there for a long time, or drove this straddle, whatever they call them. machines that hauled, you know, and then they started in the, but Lakeside was a booming place, and they had 2 taverns there, and on the weekends you couldn't get into them, I guess. But this is the way things change, you know. I was 16 years old, because I was a big kid, but probably 17. Where the yacht club is now,
Yeah.
they call that Schooland Bay, and it was all, and I worked there for 2 summers. We logged all that in there, and it all went into the bay, all went into the bay, into the lake, and it was down to the mill. And that was for 2 summers I worked there. Yeah, that was been 47 and 48. But they had Tom really had a pretty good operation there. He had a planer mill, but Lakeside was really booming at one time, you know.
Yeah.
But and so we would for 2 years we went by boat to work. We went up there and that was the easiest way to get there at that time. And we come down and we parked the boat right behind where the tavern was. And here I was a 17-year-old kid, and I'd be there drinking beer with the rest of them. But all I thought about was growing up and being a man. You know? I wasn't thinking about kid stuff. But then the guy that owned the tavern at that time, he said, somebody comes in here that we don't know. He said, you go out, go that way. You know, put that beer down and get out of here. But we'd have a couple beers after work, and then I had to come home and milk cows. But because we used to work, we only had a half hour for lunch, and we'd get off at 4:30. Must be going up my nephews. But it was.
Okay. I've always heard about the road between Sutter's Landing and the North Slough that was used. Do you know anything about that? There's a picture of
well, I tell you
what they call a bus back then. This was earlier.
When we first started here, I talked about the Bowron place up at the head of Benson Creek. To get there, we had to drive. This is in the 30s. My dad had a 36 Plymouth. We went there, I don't know, maybe once or twice a year in the summertime. You had to go down by Hauser. I don't know what the road, where the prison is. That road there, we used to go clear up there, go to Sutter's Landing, go clear up to Templeton, and then Jack Raymond. There's some people that had a big ranch named Jack Raymond. The road went across there, and you went up the hill, went over that hill, and you come down into Benson Creek, and then we went. It was an all-day deal to go visit somebody. We left early in the morning and went over the hill, and it was all summertime travel for us anyway, because you had to go across the hayfield and go up to of course, my great uncle was dead at that time, and it belonged to, would have been a second cousin to me, Frank Bowron. He was another Frank Bowron. He died, he had a stroke during the war and died. But it always impressed me when I was a kid. All them, they had a big horse. It was almost, the ranches in them days, the bigger ones, were almost self-supporting. They had bunkhouses for their workers, you know. They had 4 or 5 hired men, and the houses always set up on the sunny hill where the sun was. They always built their houses where the sun. They got the sun all day long. They always had a southern face, you know. And they had a calf barn, and their main barn was built in this canyon, and it was big, and there was a road come up this way and that way, and to put the hay in the barn, they come up on the road, and there was like a bridge went right through the middle of the barn, and they forked it off, and that's the way they got the hay in the barn. It was way up in the country in them days. Well, to get back to this, but that's I imagine there was probably a road that did go down into North Slough, maybe, I don't know, maybe a wagon road, I don't know. But it was, you went clear up by the prison and
So you actually had to go way over that hill.
Oh, you went a long ways, yeah.
Yeah.
They call it Lundgren Hill. You went up over to Lundgren Hill. That's where the prison at. They call that Lundgren Hill there because there was two brothers that lived there by the name Lundgren. And then you come down and you come into Shutter's Landing, and then you went up that way up to Peterson's and that way. And then there was another road. You went up over the hill. And you went, I don't know what they call that hill. Well, when you come down into Templeton, and there was a lot of ranches up in there. There was a
There was a post office at the end of Templeton, I understand.
very possible, yeah.
And a school.
Oh yeah, well, there were schools all over. I mean, there was I didn't, but my sisters went to school up in Noble Creek. There was a school there. There was one in Shutter's Landing. There was a school. There was Templeton School. There might have been some I'm thinking of. And then as all them kids grew up, they come to Lakeside to the high school. So in them days, the high school, there was quite a few kids in Lakeside. They took I think 43 during the war was the last year, or 42. It was 42. The last year they had a high school in Lakeside, and they had a basketball team. They had 6 boys. I can name them.
You couldn't get cut from that team.
Bud Leonard, Barnhart, Wesley Myrtle, and Bud Sheehan. I'll think about it tonight when I go to bed. Can name them right off. But there was only 6 boys. Oh, Benny Myrtle, and Benny Myrtle, Bud Sheehan. Barnhart, Bud Leonard, I don't know, Wesley, I think. Wesley Myrtle, I think.
Sounds like it would be lonely on the bench if you're the
Yeah.
the odd man.
Odd man out, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the 1942. I think that was the last year. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Barnhart went to. Yeah, I'll tell you what the younger people. This is way before my time, my mother's time. Do you know that they would walk all the way from Lakeside to Reedsport to go to a dance? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
The younger generation. I mean, the older generation. Yeah, they walked all the way. I suppose
So if you wanted to go to a dance, you didn't have a lot of choices.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd walk all the way. My mother talked about that. And they wore different shoes. They had carried their dancing slippers.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bet you got home late.
Well, I think they probably danced all night. They was young and they always had. Well, like years ago, they used to right here in Lakeside at the old gymnasium. They used to have a lot of community dances. You know, and they'd have a certain time of night. They had potato salad and sandwiches and all that stuff like that, coffee or whatever they did. And then sometimes they'd dance until they run out of money, and then they'd throw it past the hat and get some more and pay the orchestra and dance some more. My mother and dad used to take me. I was little, and they didn't have babysitters then, dying. And and the old gymnasium had wooden benches or seats. They was all built out of wood. And put through your gun and you went to sleep. But yeah. And then there's another thing about Lakeside. The Courier he drilled several wells trying to get water. He could never get good, decent water. So they went across the lake. I don't know who lives there over there now. It's in that first, right across the lake. There's a big...
Across the lake from what?
Not... Wilton Courier would be on an angle. Wisties used to live over there. It's where we used to shoot fireworks years ago.
Oh yeah, okay.
But we used to shoot them off that bank or out of that field. And I could tell you a story about that too. That's funny. Anyway, they put a dam up there, and that's what the water. The Lakeside Jacobson store they got the water there, and so did Couriers, that's where they got their water.
How'd they get it across the
They
lake?
had a little pipe come underneath the lake.
Oh, really?
Down on
They had
the
a
bottom.
pipe going underneath the lake?
On the lake, yeah, come underneath the lake, come across there. How big it was, I don't know. But that was, I gotta tell you, when I was on the volunteer farming, shooting out the fireworks, you know. Of course, this is probably in the 70s or something, yeah, probably in the 70s. That's about the time well, I was, yeah. But anyway, there were always 4 of us. And you had to always be real careful on shooting them because you had to keep them covered up, and it was a lot of work. And we had these big mortars buried in the ground. Well, we go over there, we're getting ready to set up. We go over there early to, you know, it's a lot of work to get all set up. Well, there's a fence there, but there's a yearling bull or something. That sucker, he didn't like us there at all. He's going back and forth, and he's the bull, and then the bull. And, you know, he might have been a 2-year-old. I don't know what he was. Well, the first thing he shoot off was a big, I don't know, a salute. That's what, about 6 inch, I guess. That sucker went off and went up there and went boom. We haven't seen no more of that bull. you can hear the alder trees breaking as we and no more bull. We got rid of him. Turning them lights out behind the pier. Well, this is right after the war, but the logging was going on, and Carl Jacobson owned that place there, that oldest house in Lakeside. And they had a lot of logging stuff stored there. And it was black, it was on Halloween night, black as ink. And I was about 15 years old again. We were running, you know. And I run right, and the donkey, thank God the donkey spool a wooden spool was laying this way. It was high, you know. I run right into that. That took care of me. I'd like to, it didn't break anything, but whoa, man, it hurt. I run right into it, but it give with me, you know. And, I never forgot that neither. Then another time, I think we weren't married. I know we weren't married. But I was downtown, and I was 18. I might have been 19, I don't know. But anyway, the kids used to go around, and everybody had outside plumbing. They didn't have outside privy. They didn't have no running water. Not very few. And that was the older kids go around, push them over.
Push them over,
Okay, well,
It still happens, I hear.
Muriel's down there, and we're in the car, and here these kids come. And will you come help us? We got this one, we cannot get it over. We cannot get it over. Okay, I'll come. We couldn't get it to tip over because I think it was nailed on posts or something. So they decided they're going to make a bunch of noise. So I'm standing back here, and this kid picks up a bucket. And it's got ears on it like that. And I'm standing behind him. And he hit me right there, right underneath my eye. And I thought, this is the time to grow up. I think I had 3 stitches in my nose and 7 underneath my eye. I had to go to the doctor and get sewed up.
Now watch that backswing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for sharing this with us. On my list here, you pretty much got over all of them. We do have the menus from the Pier Cafe here, copies of it, and also copies of what their advertisement of Courier for Courier Village was that they sent around. And those are useful. It was a hopping time, and apparently after the war was pretty hopping around here too, with the log mills and fishing and other activities of dairy. So I think that we appreciate your wisdom and memories.
one
on
thing I'd
this.
like to bring in
Sure.
that's about the rodeos. They had rodeos here in Lakeside in the 30s, and they even had boxing matches down in the fairground, in the rodeo grounds. And that was probably 38, 39, somewhere along in there.
Where were the rodeo grounds?
Down where the sewer plant is now. They had a big rodeo grounds down there.
Oh, wow.
And then where the building is there now, I don't know what's in it, people's living in it, I guess. That used to be the horse barn. And there was a guy that, Joslin was his name. Anyway, he was holding the money and he blew town. He left with all the money.
Yeah.
That was some of the good old days.
Yeah.
But of course, I was little. The reason I remember my dad got his leg broke longshoring in 1938, and they had him for, he was on crutches, I remember that, but he was one of the judges at the rodeo for the guys riding.
And the guy ran off with the money.
Yeah, his name was Joslin. They ran off with the money.